Sit ye down, lad, and let the fire warm your bones. The wind's got a bite tonight, and the sea's singing one of her oldest tunes, the kind that stirs up ghosts and memories alike. I've spent my life on these Welsh shores, tending lighthouses from Anglesey to Cardigan Bay, and I've learned the sea's a jealous keeper of her secrets. But sometimes, when the tide runs low and the air grows still, you can hear bells tolling soft and mournful from beneath the waves, like the lost churches of a drowned world calling their faithful home. These tales come from the folk of the western coast, where the cliffs stand defiant against the Atlantic's wrath. Scholars with their maps and measures might say, the land's held fast since the first folks settled these isles, but the old ones know better. Beneath the grey waves lie kingdoms swallowed whole, cities of stone and spire, fields of golden grain, all silted over by centuries of sand. And their stories? They linger, carried on the tide, whispered in the creak of a lighthouse door, or the hum of a lantern's flame. Lighthouses, the sea, ain't just for guiding ships. They're sentinels of the past, their beams cutting through fog to light up truths the sea'd rather keep hidden. I've tended those lights, coal fires in my grandsire's day, oil lamps in mine, and the great Fresnel lenses that could pierce a storm. It's a lonely life, keeping the flame alive. You're up all night, trimming wicks, polishing glass, watching the horizon for ships or You live in a tower of stone, with the sea as your only neighbour, and sometimes weeks pass afore the relief boat brings news or supplies. Families lived with us, crammed in those tight quarters, and the children grew up knowing the rhythm of the tides, as well as their own heartbeats. But it's a life that binds the two, the coast, to its tales of loss and longing. So pour a dram, lad, and listen close. These are the stories of Maes, Gwydno, and Tynnohelig, of drowned lands and cursed bells, and the lighthouses that stand watch over their graves. The first story is the flood of Cantre'r Gwaelod, now known as Cardigan Bay, and is from ancient times. In the heart of Cardigan Bay, where the waves roll grey and restless, lies the legend of Maes Gwydno, a fertile plain that once stretched from the Dyfi estuary to the edge of Bardsey Sound. The old songs say 16 cities stood there, their spires gleaming under a generous sun, their fields heavy with barley and oats, their markets bustling with trade from across the Celtic world. This was a land of plenty, where bards sang of heroes and hearths burned bright with oak and peat. But the sea, patient as death, was always watching. In the oldest tellings, from a time when the Britons still held these shores against Roman iron, the safety of Maes Gwydno rested on a sacred well, its stone walls a bulwark against the creeping tide. A maiden named Gwylod, chosen for her purity, was tasked with its keeping. Some say she was a priestess of Ceridwen, the goddess of the land. Others, just a girl with too heavy a burden. One night, whether through weariness, love's distraction, or a moment's lapse, the well's lid was left unfastened. The sea, sensing weakness, surged through the breach. By dawn, the cities were gone, their towers toppled, their streets drowned in a flood that left only the bay's cold expanse. By the 16th century, when Tudor ships plied the coast and the Welsh clung to their old ways under English eyes, the tale had shifted. Maes Gwydno became Cantre'r Gwaelod, the lowland 100, a realm of 100 parishes protected by mighty embankments and sluice gates, not unlike the dikes of the Low Countries. This was the age of Dafydd Ap, Gwilym's poetry and the last Welsh princes, a time when the sea was both lifeline and threat, with trade routes to Ireland and Brittany thriving. but storms claiming lives yearly. The guardian of these defences was Scythenan, a lord of Gwydno Garanheir's court, known as much for his love of mead as for his negligence. On a night when a storm roared in from the Irish Sea, its winds tearing at the cliffs like a banshee's wail, Scythenan sat in his hall, deep in his cups. The sluices, meant to be barred tight, stood open, their oak gates groaning under the tide's weight. The sea needed no second invitation. It crashed through, swallowing fields, homes, and temples in a single night. By morning, Cantre'r Gwaelod was no more, its bells silenced, its people scattered or drowned. Only a few shepherds on the high hills survived to tell of the flood. The lighthouses of Cardigan Bay, like the one at Aberystwyth, built later in the 19th century, stand as guardians over this lost land. In my day, we used oil lamps with parabolic reflectors, a step up from the coal fires of old, but still a chore to keep burning. You'd trim the wick every few hours, clean the soot from the glass, and haul oil up the tower's spiral stairs. The keeper's life here was one of vigilance, watching the bay for shipwrecks, logging the weather, and listening to the tales of fishermen who swore they saw the ghosts of Cantre'r Gwaelod's spires in the fog. We lived in small quarters, sometimes with wife and bairns, the sea our constant companion. The isolation could wear on thee, but the light was your purpose, your way of keeping the past alive. Archaeology lends weight to the legend. Submerged forests, their blackened stumps, visible at low tide near Borth and Anislis, date back 5,000 years. Proof of a land lost to rising seas after the last Ice Age Cardigan Bay submerged forest. These petrified oaks, preserved in peat, are all that remain of Maes Gwydno, drowned as the climate warmed and the waters rose. Fishermen still report strange shapes in the bay, ridges of stone or sunken walls, hinting at human works long submerged. And on quiet nights, when the tide is low and the wind holds its breath, the old folk swear they hear bells tolling from the deep, as if the churches of Cantre'r Gwaelod still call to their lost flock. The tale warns of hubris and neglect, for even the mightiest works of man are no match for the sea's hunger. The lighthouses, with their steady beams, remind us to keep watch, lest we lose more to the waves. The second story is of the curse of Tyn o Helig, also at Conway Bay, from the early medieval period. Northward, in the cold green waters of Conway Bay, lies another sunken realm, Tyn o Helig, the lowland of Prince Helig ap Gilnorgi. In the 6th century, when the Roman legions had long departed and the Britons warred with Saxon raiders, Helig's palace, Lys Helig, stood near Penmaen Mar. It was a marvel of its age, its timber halls hung with woven tapestries, its hearths glowing with the warmth of 100 fires. The prince, a Christian lord in a land still touched by druidic rites, ruled a fertile valley where the Conwy River met the sea, a hub of trade and pilgrimage. But this tale begins not with flood or folly, but with a sin. Helig's daughter, Gwendid, was a woman of striking beauty and fiercer ambition. Her heart set on a soldier named Tyn, a man of no wealth but boundless cunning. To win her hand, they plotted a heinous act. Tyn would slay a wealthy noble Owain of Gwynedd and claim his gold. The deed was done under cover of night, Owain's blood staining the stones of Lys Helig's courtyard. With the stolen fortune, Tyn and Gwendid wed in a feast that shook the valley with song and laughter. Yet, as the revelry peaked, a chill fell over the hall. A voice, some say it was Owain's shade, others, a messenger of God, rang out, proclaiming a curse. The 4th generation of Helig's line would pay for the blood spilled. The words hung heavy, but life went on. Gwendard and Tien grew old, their children begat children, and the palace thrived through the centuries, even as Viking longships raided the coast and the Normans eyed Wales' borders. By the 9th century, the prophecy's time had come. Helig's great-grandchildren gathered at Lys Helig for a feast, unaware of the doom woven into their bloodline. That night, the sea stirred. Some say it rose in a single, towering wave, a wall of green fury that shattered the valley's defenses. Others speak of a slow, relentless surge, the earth trembling as the tide crept higher. Either way, the end was swift. Tino Helig sank beneath the waves, its halls crumbling, its bells falling silent. Only two escaped, a bard and a serving girl, who fled to the hills and carried the tale to the monasteries of Gwynedd. The lighthouses of Conway Bay, like the one at Great Orme, built in 1862, keep watch over these waters. In my time, we used Fresnel lenses, those cunning prisms that bent light into a beam that could cut through the thickest fog. Great Orme Lighthouse. You'd wind the clockwork every few hours to keep the lens turning, clean the lens daily to keep it free of salt, and pray the oil didn't run low before the next supply boat. Keeper life here was solitary but communal in its way. 3 keepers, sharing shifts, living in a stone cottage by the tower. We'd swap stories of Tino Helig, of the bells our grandfathers heard, and keep an eye on the fishing boats that braved the bay's currents. The sea could turn cruel fast, and the light was their only guide. Evidence of Tino Helig persists. Divers near Penmaen Mart have found linear stone formations at depths of 10 meters, too regular to be natural, possibly remnants of walls or causeways from a submerged settlement, Lys Helig. These align with medieval accounts of a lost lowland, perhaps flooded during post-glacial sea level rise or a catastrophic storm. The Welsh triads, ancient texts of lore, mention Helig ap Glanog, lending historical weight to the tale. Fishermen still speak of causeways visible at low tide and on still nights. The air carries a faint tolling, as if the chapels of Lys Helig yet ring beneath the sea. This story speaks of justice deferred but never denied, a warning that the sins of the past ripple forward. The lighthouses, with their ceaseless vigilance, stand as a reminder to heed the warnings of old, lest the sea claim more than we can bear. There the hafter tales of drowned lands, the sea's eternal memory, of bells that ring through centuries of silt and tide. Cantre'r Gwaelod and Tino Helig, lost to folly and sin, yet never truly gone. The sea forgets nothing, and her stories live in the wind, the waves, and the beams of the lighthouses that guard these shores. Keeper life taught me that. Up in those towers, with the lanterns spinning and the sea roaring below, you feel the weight of the past. You're not just keeping a light, you're keeping faith with all who came before, all who trusted the flame to guide them home. The coal fires of the 17th century, the Agand lamps of the 18th, the Fresnel lenses of my day, they all served the same purpose: to push back the dark, to tell the sea she can't have everything. So when the fog rolls in and the bells toll soft from the deep, listen well. They're calling to us still from the drowned cities of Wales, reminding us to hold fast against the tide. Now, refill that glass. The night's young, and the sea's got more stories yet to tell. Many thanks for treading this tale's dark path. If its chill gripped you, follow, subscribe, and comment below.